Okay, so let's go to arms now. This is pretty simple because it basically follows the same idea of the legs. Actually, it's a bit easier because we don't have the whole row setup. So for the arms, I'm keeping all the controllers under the same group. And I have the FK, the 3FK controls. I have arm IK in the end here where the hand is. I have the pole vector. And I have a clavicle as well, which it's here. Oh, let me move a little bit. Yeah, so the clavicle control, which moves the whole chain. So I also have a group under the arm for all the joint control, for all the finger controls. I just found that was a bit easier to organize. But the finger controls are basically just FK controls. And oh, my camera is going a bit crazy. Yeah, basically just chain of FK controls, and that's it. So starting from the setup event, this is where I'm placing the controllers. I'm using the same function I explained on the legs. So it's the setup limb IKFK. So I'm passing the joints, which are shoulder, elbow, wrist. Then I'm passing the IK control, the pole vector, and then the FK controls. I'm doing that for left and right sides. And I have another setup for the joints. So I'm passing here basically an array of index joints, middle, ring, pinky, thumb, and then the same for the controls. I just thought it was easier if I group it this way, but I'm not limiting it into the amount of joints that I have on each of these fingers, because sometimes in this case I'm just using 3 controls for this, but the thumb, for example, only have 2. And I could have added a metacarpal in control here if I wanted, for example. So this way, the way that I've built this function, it would actually work as long as the number of joints and the number of the controls are the same. So it doesn't matter how many are using here, it would still work. That's because what I'm using is I'm using union. So I'm getting all these arrays and actually created just one big array of joints, which I'm getting the transforms here, and then one big array of controls, which I'm setting the transform here, both checked as initial. And that's it. That's my setup configuration. So for the arms, I'm using the same limb by KFK function that I showed in the legs. The only difference here is because we don't have the row setup. So for the control ball, I'm actually just repeating the same IK control, which I have here. That's the only difference. Everything else is the same. So I'm doing that for the left side, for the right side. And then I'm just setting a very basic forward hand function here. So again, I'm getting all the joints, all the controls for the fingers. I'm also getting the wrist joint because I want these to follow the wrist joint. That means that it doesn't matter if I'm in IK or if I'm in FK. The hands would still follow the same. That's because the hand is actually parented by the wrist and not controller. And also, as I said, to organize a little bit, I created a group for all the fingers, so I'm passing this information here as well. So let's have a look at this function here. Here is pretty similar to the setup hand. The only thing that is additional is these two rig element keys here, for the wrist joint and for the finger space. So I'm doing the same as I was doing the setup hand, but the opposite. This time I'm getting the transform of the controls and I'm setting the joints from the, also not taking the initial option here. And then what I do later is that I get, I'm projecting to a new parent. Oh, so I'm getting the finger space as the child, and I'm getting the wrist joint as the parent, and I'm getting this transform, and I'm setting the finger space transform from what I got in here. So finger space as a child here, finger space as an item here, and wrist joint as both old and new parents. And that's it really. That's the arm setup. So for the clavicle, the clavicle lives under the big left arm group here, as I showed it's in here. And then what I'm doing is that I want the whole arm group to follow the chest. So the chest joint. So basically if I move the chest, the whole arm follows. So what I'm doing here is I'm using project to new parent, and the child is the left arm group, and the parent is the chest joint. So I'm doing this here, and then what I'm doing later is that I created this function, which is supposed to be an easy way to just do FK chains. I just found it easier if I just place in one function here, and I'm exposing translations and rotation filters in here. So what I'm doing is that I'm passing a joint, which is the clavicle joint, and I want the control to be the clavicle. So in this case, I'm not even using a chain of information. I'm just using one joint and one control to be an FK connection. But then I'm also passing the FK child, which is the left arm group here. So let's open this. So basically this is my basic FK chain. So get the bones, get the controls, and here is where I exposed the filters. I could have just used these on this, but I just wanted to add this parent here in the end because I just want to make sure that in this case I'm using the first joint will also drive this thing that I'm naming as child. That's because the whole arm is not under the clavicle, you see. So the clavicle is kind of an independent controller, but I wanted that the other controllers for the arm would also follow the clavicle movement without having to manually place them under here. For example, like if I had to do it like this, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep them as clean as possible. But in this case, I want these joints to basically parent the whole group. So if I move the clavicle, that means that the whole group is following. So not only the joints are following, but also the controllers are following the movement as well. And then I just repeat that for the right side. Just to show a little bit of the order here, so I'm first calculating the clavicle, and then I'm calculating the arms, and then I'm calculating the legs. That's just how I've organized this rig.